Hello, welcome to this video on TJ Economics. It's going to be a Year 12 macroeconomics topic today, quite a basic one. You're probably studying this very early in the year. We're going to be looking at the circular flow of income. It's one of the early topics we do, as I said, and what it really is, the circular flow of income. It is a model that we economists use in order to demonstrate how the economy works, how different transactions can affect the economy, and how goods, services, and money will flow between different economic agents. So at this most basic level, we have households made up of people just like you and me. We have firms, businesses that make goods and services. And at this most basic level, what do consumers do? Well, they consume and they spend money on goods and services. So at its most basic level, this is the first circular flow indeed, that we can see in this model. We need to think, well, how do firms make those goods and services? They need resources, of course. And you might well have seen in microeconomics the factors of production, land, labour, capital, and enterprise. Where do firms get those resources from? They get them from households in order to make goods and services. And what do they get in return for those, the households? They get factor incomes. So for land, they get rent. For labour, they get wages. For capital, they get interest. And for enterprise, of course, they get profit. So this is the most basic model, most basic level of the circular flow. You've got households providing resources to firms. Firms then use those resources to make goods and services. Households then spend money on those goods and services that they receive in factor incomes. That's the most basic stage of this. And as you can see, that sort of red ring shows us this is what we would call a closed economy. There is nothing going on in or out of the economy. But as you might guess, that's not quite how it works. And so we can see the government here. The government can change the size of the circular flow with different actions. For example, government spending. If the government spends money, that means that they will increase the size of the circular flow. They are injecting money into the circular flow. And so the government can make the circular flow bigger by spending money. On the other hand, they can actually make it smaller too by using taxation. When they tax my income, when they tax anyone's income, when they tax corporate profits, when they tax VAT, etc., they are taking money out of the circular flow. And so that would shrink the size of the circular flow. We can also see that when the UK, in this case, does trade with the rest of the world, that's going to change it as well. For example, when we export something to the rest of the world, no matter where it goes, think about it, the money from that export is coming into the UK from the foreign country. And so that means there's more money in the UK, more income in the UK, and so that would increase the size of the circular flow. On the other hand, imports, when we buy something from abroad, that means that money is leaving the UK. Yes, the good comes into the UK, of course, but the money leaves the UK. And so again, the amount of money, the amount of income in the UK gets smaller. And so that's money leaving the UK. And then lastly, the financial sector, if they provide money for investment, that can increase the size of the circular flow. And like we say, on the other hand, every time I save money, every time you save money, that is money that is not circulating around the economy. You know, money in savings accounts does not circulate around the economy. It sits there. And so every time you save money, you are actually making the circular flow smaller. So like I say, each of these sectors, the government, the rest of the world, and the financial sector, can inject into the circular flow with government spending, exports, and investment, like you can see there. But they can also withdraw from the circular flow, as you can see there, with taxation, imports, and savings. So each of those sectors can affect the size of the circular flow depending on what they do. And therefore, we can look at the size of the circular flow and the size of the economy. For example, if there is more taxation, imports, and spending than there is government spending, exports, and investment, the size of the circular flow would shrink. That's because withdrawals, i.e. taxation, imports, and saving, are greater than injections, government spending, exports, and investment. And so the economy would shrink. On the other hand, if our injections, GX and I, are greater than our withdrawals, the economy will grow. And if they're equal, the economy will stay where it is. And so you can see how we can start to use this model to look at how different actions and different policies will affect the size of the economy. For example, the government is spending a huge sum of money on HS2 at the moment in the UK. That's a big example of government spending. And the government spending that money will inject into the circular flow and make the economy bigger. And that's an example of government spending. Furthermore, every time a UK consumer buys something from abroad, imports something, so every time we import, I don't know, a Japanese TV or a French car or anything like that, that counts as an import. And so because that money leaves the UK, we find that the circular flow gets smaller. And then lastly, like I said, every time you put money into a savings account, every time I do, every time anyone puts money into a savings account, that is a withdrawal from the circular flow because that money cannot be spent. Money in a savings account doesn't get spent in the circular flow. And so we can actually also use the circular flow to measure GDP, or at least estimate it, as I'm sure you understand. Firstly, we can look at expenditure and consumption. We can literally add up all of the money being spent on goods and services, and that's GDP. We can also use factor incomes. We can add up all of the incomes that anyone receives in the UK, and that's GDP. And then lastly, we can look at the output of firms. We can add up the value of everything outputted by firms. And so with the circular flow, we've got 3 ways of measuring GDP. And so, in summary, we use this model, the circular flow, to measure how the economy works and how the size of the economy may change. We can measure GDP using the output method, the expenditure method, and the income method. And then we have our taxation, saving, and imports, which will make the country smaller. Those are our withdrawals. And we have government spending, investment, and exports that all make the country larger. Those are our injections. And so, if you've enjoyed this video, please do make sure to like and subscribe. Feel free to save it for later. Feel free to follow me as well on Instagram and Twitter, where I post regular economics related information and I talk about current events going on and I try to relate them to economics. But like I say, if you have enjoyed this, feel free to come back again. See you later.